Hi everyone, I'm Viraansh. I went to NES International School in Mumbai. I am currently studying at the University of Oxford at St. Peter's College, doing law with international law. Oxford is an amazing university. It's one of the highest ranked QS and THE universities with faculty beyond comparison. From a pure academic perspective, the experience at Oxford is interesting in a lot of ways because very often you're reading textbooks and the very next day you're having a tutorial with the person that wrote the textbook that you're reading or a lecture by the same person. And what seems so far away from an academic perspective in school, wherein you read textbooks from people you probably never meet and never be able to engage with them on their opinions as well as their outlooks, you can do that at Oxford. Even from a social perspective, the people you meet, crowds that do come to Oxford, are by far and wide so far different than any place in its comparison. Our first day at Oxford was a very interesting time because I had just moved in from India. I was facing culture shock like never before. I was in a situation wherein, because I went to an international school, I was always with the outset that I was going to go abroad to study. I thought I knew what I had to do once I got there, but the place surprises you in so many different ways. But I think there was a good transitionary team in place, a good amount of events in place that made sure that I felt at home in just a couple of weeks of being there. Campus life at Oxford is very, very diverse. You get to pick and choose what you want to do there. I've spent a lot of time in student politics organizations. I've been elected to positions in the Oxford Union. I've worked very closely with them for the last 2 years that I've been at Oxford. On the other hand, you also have societies in arts, in music, in film, and also sports activities. There's a very interesting saying at Oxford when it comes to defining your social life, which is you either end up with a first, which is a distinction in your degree, you either end up with a spouse at the end of your degree, or you end up with a blue, which is representing the university at sports events. There's three choices, basically. It's my engagement with my subject that put me in a different category from other applicants. Rostrum was fundamental in giving me the right material as well as the right content to look at, understand, and engage with when it came to showing my underlying passion as well as my underlying understanding of the law. And my ability to present that, which was aided, of course, by the amazing mentors at Rostrum, is what created a situation wherein I could both engage with the law at a deeper level compared to my peers, while at the same time be able to show the level of my engagement to anybody who was assessing me. I chose the law because I spent a lot of my time reading about these people in jurisprudence and engaging with legal theory. And there was no better way of implementing that legal theory other than learning the law. Being an international student is difficult, obviously. You're in a different country, you've been brought up, mollycoddled by your Indian parents your entire life, never had to do anything yourself. So you move to a different country, you end up in a situation wherein what were rather basics of life have now not been quote-unquote sorted for you. So when I first moved, I think just the ability of eating 3 square meals a day was really difficult because there was no one to cook them for you, there was nobody to remind you to eat them. But I think that's part of the learning experience, that when I walk out of my degree in a couple of years' time, I'll be a self-sufficient human being that can conduct himself in any corner of the globe. You'll be in a situation where in school, if you did the same things, there was somebody to cover for you, there was somebody to excuse you for what you've done. But in college, you have to face sort of, the slap on the wrist whenever you mess up. There's nobody to remind you to go to your lectures. There's nobody to remind you to submit your work on time. All you do face is the consequences of having, a failed or not submitted on your transcript. But I think the transition from school to college life is the period in life when you learn the most, when you also learn a lot about yourself and what kind of person you are. There's been quite a few, but right now I've been awarded a full scholarship, including living costs and tuition fees, to go study at the University of Leiden for a year. I'm doing a research project, including being taught certain aspects over there that deal with international law of taxation and corporates. So I'm working as a legal researcher for the University of Leiden for 1 year, in which I'm receiving full funding for everything from my visa to my housing. It was hands down Gwyn. Gwyn was instrumental in my application. They were instrumental in making sure that I was up all guns blazing whenever it came to applying to my universities. I think Gwyn was a huge part in making sure that I got into the places that I wanted to get into, and had a huge impact and sort of effect on the way I wrote my application, and gave me perspectives I could have never thought of. Rostrum has sort of a three-part effect when it comes to your application. Fundamentally, when you're preparing in the very early stages, their mentors really know their stuff. So you get reading lists like I do in college now for your subject, for your application. So you sit down, and even if perhaps you've only had an inkling that you want to do a certain major, by the end of that preparation process, you've just learned so much about that major that you are automatically at a different starting point than most people. Then the actual execution of the application, folks at Rostrum, especially all the mentors that I've seen, are amazing writers. And they have the ability of just looking at your work and giving you just the right amount of feedback and input to make it something that's sort of, presented better, but it's still your own. And I think that's really important. And finally, with regards to interview preparation, again, like I said, Gwyn was hands down the most amazing interviewer I've ever been interviewed with in my life, until now at least. And as a result, it's just the exceptional stuff that puts Rostrum in a different league. When I was applying, it was a COVID year. It was 2022. So I unfortunately never got to meet Gwyn in person. But I think one of the most memorable experiences in the application process was when I got my letter to interview from Oxford. And then, then I really knew that, okay, now we have to really put our head in our game because we've cleared like the first hurdle. And if I make it through this, then, it's a done deal. So at that point, me and Gwyn sort of connected properly for the first time with regards to the interview. And until I walked into that Zoom meeting, I thought I knew everything there is to know about this process and about the law and about, just how to be a good student of jurisprudence. And then I had one conversation with Gwyn, and I was like, okay, there is work to be done here. And I think this wonderful job that Gwyn did at keeping me humble and making sure that I never sort of grew too apathetic with working towards my college application journey, that made sure that I did well and I got to the places I got to. So I'd probably describe Rostrum as diligent, experienced, and just forward-looking. I would say firstly work with Rostrum, but aside from that, I think students who are applying now or considering applying now in different stages of their application should never forget to just breathe, to just take the space that they need to properly reevaluate their options and properly make sure that they want to do whatever it is that they're doing. And I think that's what's most important, that you have a certain inalienable, deep appreciation for your work, for your study, for what you're going to do basically for 40 hours a week when you're at university. So I honestly think that if you are in any stage of your application right now, stop and think. And as long as you take out time to reflect on what you're doing, the time you're spending, and your actions as a whole, you will do well.